At 5:12 hours local time, 2 Ukrainian Su-24M strike aircraft were already airborne, flying low and fast as the first light of dawn crept across western Russia. Their flight path traced river valleys and forest lines, exploiting terrain masking to remain below the effective radar horizon of Russian ground-based systems. Engine output was carefully managed to reduce infrared signature. Radar exposure windows had been calculated down to seconds. This was not a frontline ammunition dump, not a hardened airbase, not a trench network reinforced over months of combat. It was the Belgorod Dam, a massive hydraulic structure regulating regional water flow, stabilizing electrical distribution, and indirectly supporting rail corridors and pumping stations, feeding both civilian infrastructure and Russian military logistics near the border. It had not been designed to absorb missile impacts, and it had not been integrated into a layered battlefield defense grid, at least not originally. In the hours before the strike, Ukrainian ISR assets detected a shift. Satellite imagery showed short-notice deployments of Tor-M2 and Panzer S-1, air defense vehicles repositioned closer to the dam under darkness. These were not permanent fortified sites. They were mobile units placed to cover likely approach vectors. Signals intelligence confirmed intermittent radar emissions, short pulses from 9S-36 and 1RS-2-1E fire control radars activating for seconds, then shutting down again to avoid anti-radiation targeting. Russian crews were operating cautiously. That caution indicated priority. The dam was not just infrastructure. It supported grid stability across a region already strained by wartime consumption. It regulated flow to pumping stations supplying industrial facilities and fuel depots. Rail signaling networks tied into the same electrical backbone. Damage to external systems could force shutdowns without catastrophic structural failure. Kyiv's directive was specific. Strike critical external components, avoid uncontrolled flooding, force systemic disruption. 3 standoff missiles were allocated for the mission. At 0330 hours, Ukrainian Air Force Command approved execution. The Su-24M platforms were selected for payload integration and terrain following capability. The aircraft carried 3 Storm Shadow cruise missiles, long-range, low-observable, terrain-hugging weapons with autonomous navigation and hardened target penetration capability. 2 missiles were mounted on the lead aircraft, 1 on the wing pylon of the second. Launch corridors were programmed to approach from staggered vectors, compressing Russian reaction timelines. At 5:16 hours, as the aircraft crossed into contested airspace, radar warning receivers lit up with intermittent search signals from S-300 and Buk-M2 systems positioned deeper inland. The Su-24M crews remained below detection thresholds as long as possible, using river valleys to mask their approach. At 5:18, both aircraft executed a brief pop-up maneuver. The exposure lasted seconds. Missile release. 3 Storm Shadows separated cleanly, engines igniting as they transitioned into autonomous, low-altitude cruise profiles. The Su-24Ms immediately descended, turned hard, and exited along pre-planned escape corridors. Russian radar screens illuminated almost simultaneously. Multiple low-altitude contacts appeared, approaching the dam from slightly offset bearings. Tor-M2 crews attempted rapid acquisition. Panzer S-1 operators engaged in tracking mode. Interceptors were launched. At least 2 surface-to-air missiles streaked toward one of the incoming cruise missiles, but Storm Shadow's low radar cross-section, terrain following flight path, and terminal maneuvering reduced intercept probability. 1 interceptor detonated behind its target, another failed to achieve lock. The timeline collapsed. At 5:21 hours, the first missile struck a service structure adjacent to the dam's spillway control systems. The Broach warhead penetrated before detonation, rupturing reinforced concrete and destroying external control housings and cable arrays. Shockwaves rippled across the upper deck. Monitoring feeds inside the control building flickered and went dark. Seconds later, the second missile impacted a transformer substation feeding downstream facilities. The blast shredded high-voltage transformers and severed bus connections. Electrical arcs flared as grid segments disconnected automatically. power load shifted abruptly across the regional network. Then, the third missile hit. It struck an auxiliary pumping and regulation structure near the base of the dam, an external component responsible for managing controlled flow adjustments. The penetration detonation compromised hydraulic control assemblies without breaching the primary retaining wall. 3 impacts, not random, sequenced. Primary monitoring systems failed instantly. Backup generators engaged, then tripped under fluctuating load conditions. Grid protection relays activated across multiple substations. Automated shutdown sequences cascaded faster than manual overrides could compensate. Water flow did not catastrophically surge, but it destabilized. Sensors downstream began reporting irregular fluctuations as automated gates attempted to recalibrate under partial system failure. Corrections overshot. Algorithms compensated again. Oscillation replaced stability. Rail signaling networks tied into the same power backbone began blinking offline. Freight trains halted under safety protocols. Junction switches locked in place. Electrically powered pumping stations supplying fuel depots and industrial nodes shut down mid-cycle. The effects spread beyond the dam structure. Inside Russian regional command centers, information flooded in unevenly. Some units reported limited external damage. Others flagged grid instability. Logistics officers reported rail stoppages. Energy authorities warned of transformer loss and cascading protection events. Air defense commanders scrambled Su-25S fighters from a nearby base, but the Ukrainian Su-24Ms were already exiting at low altitude, outside practical intercept range. Electronic warfare units activated broader jamming envelopes, degrading GPS across sectors, but the strike had already landed. Engineering teams were dispatched before full damage assessments were complete. Meanwhile, grid instability deepened. When the transformer station failed, load shifted to parallel lines not designed for sustained wartime draw. Industrial consumers experienced forced shutdowns. Pumping cycles feeding storage facilities fell out of sync. Diesel distribution to forward logistics depots slowed. The immediate battlefield did not explode. It stalled. Within hours, Russian artillery units near the border began reporting fuel delivery delays. Not because fuel was unavailable, but because pumping schedules and rail timetables had fallen out of synchronization. Ammunition trains waited at locked junctions for manual clearance. Backup power brought segments online piecemeal, but sequencing errors created bottlenecks. What had been a steady logistical rhythm fractured. Russian command faced a decision matrix. Reinforce frontline sectors already under pressure, or divert air defense and engineering assets to protect and repair infrastructure now proven vulnerable. Additional Tor M2 and Pantsir S1 systems were repositioned around key substations. S-300 batteries adjusted coverage arcs to include infrastructure nodes previously considered low priority. Engineering brigades concentrated near Belgorod rather than forward sectors. That redistribution had consequences. Air defense density thinned elsewhere. Rail congestion accumulated. By midday, temporary bypass routing was attempted for grid stabilization. Mobile generators were trucked in. Field transformers were positioned. Repair crews replaced external cabling under armed guard. But grid synchronization is not instantaneous. Load balancing requires stable input. Until the destroyed transformer capacity was replaced, compensatory strain continued. Fuel convoys scheduled for synchronized dispatch were delayed. Rail freight accumulated at secondary yards. Manual overrides replaced automated sequencing. Frontline units felt it first in subtle ways. Reduced artillery tempo, delayed refueling windows, extended wait times for resupply confirmation. Not collapse, friction. The dam itself still stood. Water flowed. But the illusion that it was beyond reach was gone. And the strategic calculation shifted. If external infrastructure enabling military logistics could be precisely targeted without catastrophic humanitarian consequences, then the definition of rear area narrowed dramatically. By late afternoon, satellite imagery showed temporary shielding erected along damaged sections. Heavy cranes operated near transformer ruins. Additional radar units were emplaced overlooking the reservoir. Russian state media described the incident as minor damage. Operational maps told a different story. Air defense arcs redrawn, engineering units retasked, logistics timetables rewritten, 3 missiles, 3 impacts, no collapse of the dam wall, no uncontrolled flooding, but a systemic disruption that forced reallocation of assets across an already strained theater. As dusk settled, grid segments flickered back to partial stability. Rail movement resumed in limited fashion. Pumping stations re-entered rotation under manual oversight. Repairs were underway, but air defense radars remained active through the night, scanning sectors previously considered secure. Because the precedent had been set, the dam had been reached, and once a system is proven reachable, every component connected to it becomes part of the battlefield. Night fell over Belgorod. Radar emissions pulsed across the dark reservoir. Engineering crews worked under floodlights. And somewhere in a regional command bunker, a new defensive overlay was being drawn across infrastructure maps that had never been meant to resemble a front line.